Hi there, welcome to another God question. We've had a new question in, and the question is, how can a tribe living in the Himalayas or the middle of a South American rainforest go to heaven? To go to heaven, you must accept Jesus Christ as your Saviour, and they will most likely never hear of the man. Well, to start with, I just want to make sure that I'm getting your question correct, because it's always hard to decide whether to take a question that we have in as written or decide that there's maybe a deeper question behind it. The question is, how can a tribe living in the Himalayas or the middle of a South American rainforest go to heaven? And then you make the statement that to go to heaven, you must accept Jesus Christ as your Saviour. So the answer to your question is actually in your question. How can a tribe living in the middle of a South American rainforest go to heaven? By accepting Jesus Christ as their Saviour. However, I think that your question is directed more towards the fact that it seems, and it only seems, it's not certain, that there may be some tribes in remote places that die before they hear of Jesus, and what will happen to them. And I need to first start off by saying that your motives for asking this question could be many different possibilities, but people need to know that a question like this doesn't excuse us or them from making a response in our own lives. That'd be kind of like a student getting set some homework by their teacher, not doing it, and then when asked by the teacher why they didn't do their homework, they say, I didn't do my homework because I don't think the person over the road heard that we had homework. It just sounds nuts, doesn't it? But that's basically what we're doing. We each have our own responsibility for the information that we've received. There's a verse in the Bible in Deuteronomy 29 verse 29 that says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may follow all the words of this law. And that verse states that things that have been revealed to us, we will be held accountable for, what we do with the knowledge that we have. However, I also know that this question might be coming from a place of questioning God's justice in sending some people to hell who've never heard of Jesus. God might be depicted as saying, oh, you didn't accept Jesus, so you can go to hell. Whilst loads of people are saying, who? We never heard of this guy. You can't do that. However, God is a God of justice and he does what's right. He's slow to anger and he's abounding in steadfast love. Yet he will in no way spare the wicked. It's important to see that God won't just send people to hell just because they've made a conscious decision to reject Jesus, but because they've broken his divine law. They've sinned. We've all sinned. And God isn't just a whimsical God who just casts people into hell just because he's having a bad day that day. Whatever we do and do not understand, it's definite on that day, the day of judgment, that God will do right because he's a just God. But another thing to remember when thinking about this subject is that even if someone's never heard of Jesus, they still have the knowledge that there's a God. Because since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what's been made, so that mankind are without excuse. That's in Romans 1 verse 20. All of the universe shows that there was a creator. A painting has to have a painter. A building has to have a builder. The universe has to have a creator. That's one of the reasons that even though tribes in the middle of nowhere, and they've maybe never heard of Jesus or been told about him, they're not atheists. They understand that there's a spiritual realm beyond what we can see with our physical eyes. The Bible also teaches that even though mankind's sense of right and wrong, their morality, has been severely warped and twisted by the fall, we nonetheless still have a conscience. Therefore, no one's completely ignorant of God. All of us have some knowledge about God, and we'll all be judged according to that knowledge. Even though people have a knowledge of God, people generally suppress that knowledge because they love their sin, they love dark more than light, and their consciences become seared. I also understand that there might be another motive to this question, though, a genuine motive of love for those who do not know Jesus. The main way that people hear about Jesus is somebody who's met Jesus for themselves, been changed by him, going to places where people have not heard about him to tell them. These people are called missionaries. They're called missionaries, and they devote themselves to going to tell people about Jesus. Jesus gave a command to all people who claim to follow him to preach the good news to every creature. Some Christians realize that the way people hear about Jesus is for them to hear from somebody, so they go themselves. In fact, there's Christian organizations devoted to reaching every tribe with the good news of Jesus. One I love hearing about and I'm interested in myself is called New Tribes Mission. They understand the seriousness of your question, and they're going to tell them about Jesus and how he died for their sins and was raised from the dead so that they can be forgiven and have new life. If you wanted to check out more about New Tribes Mission, you can go to www.ntm.org. It's just to summarise what I've been saying, really, only God ultimately knows what's going to happen to every individual on that day. Yet he will do right because he's a good and just God. He won't do what our view of right is, but he will do what's actually right. For those who've heard the good news about Jesus and rejected it, the Bible's very clear. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we've received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left, but only a fearful expectation of judgment and of raging fire that will consume the enemies of God. Hebrews 10 verses 26 and 27. The question that you've given in no way negates each individual's responsibility to act upon what they themselves have heard. There's missionaries and missionary organizations who are dedicated to reaching those who haven't heard. If you yourself are using this question as a diversion from your own responsibility, then please consider your own response to Jesus and his claims to give new life to anyone who turns to him. If you're genuinely, lovingly concerned for the lost, seek God on how he wants you to act on that. He might well indeed be calling you to go and tell those people about Jesus. He might be calling you to the mission field. But the promise I find helpful when thinking about subjects like this, is that Jesus promised that whoever genuinely seeks him will find him. God says anyone who seeks after him with all their heart will find him. So it's my plea to you who ask this question and anybody else watching this. Seek him while he may be found. Call upon him while he's near, because he's not far from any one of us. God bless you and thank you for listening.